Good morning, students. In the previous video, you happened to get an introduction in detail about Charlotte Bronte, who is one of the English writers. So today we are going to discuss in detail about her poem Life. Her poem is divided into 3 stanzas, 8 lines each, and once we look at her poem, there is a proper rhyme scheme also, which means there would be rhyming at the end of each line. When we look at the first line, life believe is not a dream, so dark as sages say, oft a little morning rain, foreplace a pleasant day. Sometimes there are clouds of gloom, but these are transient all. If the shower will make the roses bloom, oh why lament its fall? So here, as we see that there is this first line and third line, except this, all the lines are rhyming. For example, look at the second line, sages say, pleasant day, transient all, lament its fall. Rain, okay, except dream and rain, gloom, bloom, for all, fall. Except the first and the third line, we can see that there is a rhyme scheme of AB from except the first and third line. Okay, so I hope you remember what was the pseudonym or the pen name of Charlotte Bronte. Okay, so that was Currer Bell. Good. So when we look at this poem, when we look at the first stanza here, she talks about the word, she begins it with the word life. Okay, so that she can emphasize on the main fact that the poem is all about life and what happens in life. So here she tries to tell us that life is not all about a dream which is really very dark, or which is quite unpleasant or something like that, just as people do say, or the old people say, or the sages say. But she says that maybe after the morning rain, oft means often a little morning rain, it foretells a pleasant day. Maybe after a rain in the morning, after some time of it, we can see that there would be a pleasant day. The term morning rain is seen as a metaphor for sorrow and despair and pain. We may have painful situations in our life, but we may mourn for some time, but later on there are good times too which come in way. So she tries to symbolize this morning rain as a metaphor for the pain or the problem or the sorrows or griefs what we are going through in our day-to-day life. So she even talks about the when you look at the fifth line, sometimes there are clouds of gloom, but these are transient all, which means clouds of gloom. Clouds are said to be the sadness or the sad times which would be there in everyone's life at some point of time or the other. But here, when we look at the clouds, are they going to be permanent or lifelong? No. Nothing is permanent. transient, which means temporary. She tries to say that pain or suffering or hurt or grief or sorrow, everything here in this world, nothing is permanent. So this pain also would go someday or after some time. Okay, so she says that this pain is temporary and short lived. If the shower will make the roses bloom, oh, why lament its fall? So there's a rhetorical question which has been raised at the end of the stanza. Here she tries to say that, you know, she tries to talk about we may, you know, why do we need to mourn? Why do we need to weep or cry? Once, there's a shower. Okay. So there are times where we feel sorrow or sad or things like that. So even after that sorrow ends, there would be the happy times which we will be really spending our lives with. When we look at the next stanza, rapidly, merrily, life's sunny hours flit by, gratefully, cheerfully, enjoy them as they fly. What though death at times steps in and calls our best away? What though sorrow seems to win o'er hope a heavy sway? So here also we see that there is a comparison, or maybe metaphorically, sunny hours are said to be the happy times what we usually have in our lives. So here when we look at the happy times, when we spend our good time with our friends and loved ones, we see that these sunny hours just go away very soon. Or maybe we happen to feel that, we spend really happy times very soon, or maybe when we meet our friends or our loved ones, we feel that time ends just in a wink of an eye, or in a fraction of a second. So just as that, in the same way, she also tries to describe that, the happy times are usually, we enjoy them as they fly, but they happen to be very short. They are said to be short-lived. Okay? When we look at the fifth line, what though death at times step in and calls our best away? What though sorrow seems to win over hope a heavy sway? So here she talks about the main point, where she talks about the death, death happening in, you know, death happening in our lives, or maybe when we happen to lose our loved ones, some of our loved ones whom we happen to lose when, you know, when they have been called, we really fall apart. We really feel sorrowful. So this is what is a memory what she tries to stress upon when we happen to, you know, see this poem as a autobiographical note, or maybe as an experience what she had in her life. As you can recollect, she has lost her mother when she was very much young, maybe when she was less than 5 years of age. Later on, even she has lost her sisters due to tuberculosis, and her brother dying in front of her because he committed suicide. So at a stretch, four deaths at a very young age of 5 or 6. when she was. This could have quite made her mind quite disturbed. So she talks about the best people whom she have or we may have. There are people, we need to remember that we are here, we are strangers here, and we so so as the best people would leave this world, we may really feel very sorrowful, and we may end up in grief, or maybe we may end up shattered because we cannot see them physically. So, she tries to say in her last couple of lines that, you know, though sorrow seems to win over hope, a heavy sway. So, this is a question which is raised by her. Here she tries to talk about sorrow, hope, or hopelessness. When we are in sorrow, we feel we are hopeless. Sorrow would try to win at times, but you know, but let's see what is there in the next stanza. Well, let us look at the third stanza here. Yet hope again, elastic springs, unconquered though she fell. Still buoyant are her golden wings, still strong to bear us well. Manfully, fearlessly, the day of trial bear, for gloriously, victoriously, can courage quell despair. So here, maybe in the previous stanza, we could see that, sorrow may seem to win over the hope in a heavy sway, but when we look at as the time goes on, when we look at the people who are left over hopeless, who are left over shattered, who are in pain, who are going through tough situation, you know, hope may seem to lose, but later on, as the time goes on, hope again would be springing up in their lives. Even though it felt, just like unconquered, or maybe, they have lost their hope, just like an elastic. As hope, just as we compress the elastic, or maybe a spring, when we try to compress our hope to the great extent, when we just try to release it, just the same way, hope also, according to that time, it takes time, but hope would be regained by the person who has lost hope. Okay, so here, still buoyant are her golden wings, still strong to bear as well. Who has these golden wings? Whose wings are quite balancing and strong to bear? These are the golden wings of hope. Hope is being personified here, and it is given life. It has been given life as it has been given golden wings. Hope, we see that as the hope would be springing hope would be seen as, it's going to balance her golden wings in a person, and it is going to make that person strong and make that person better, and manfully, fearlessly. This is what the poetess tries to say. As the time goes on, hope would be regained by that person, so that every grief you know would be recollected as you know as a part of memory, as a part of life. So here, as she can balance her self, here we can see that she can bear all her hurdles in her life, manfully, which means strongly and without any fear. A day of trial, bear, which means it is seen as the day of judgment. Judgment, as usually believed in Christianity and in other religions. She talks about the courage which will make her victoriously in the end. So she says that the when we look at this, the day of trial, which means the day of judgment, which everyone needs to face this. She tries to use this biblical allusion, or maybe the day of judgment, right? So the poem would be ending up with a positive note, with a strong will and hope, saying that with determination, with gloriously, victoriously can courage quell despair. Where she tries to say that good will ultimately will come to her. We can see that this we when we look at all these imagery here, rain is said to be a symbol of despair when we look at the first stanza. And you know here she tries to look at the bright side by looking at the the rain is said to be despair, whereas when we look at the bright times, which means the sunny day, which would be a happier time. These are the symbols what we see here in the poem. Then she talks about the fast running moments of our life, which we usually know, which we usually experience in our life. As you already know, which I've given you as an example, that if we are spending good time with our loved ones or our friends, we feel really that 1 hour or hours together or a whole day went by in a fraction of seconds. So here she tries to end the third stanza in a with a full of hope being regained in her, with an optimistic feeling and being courageous. That we need to be even courageous after death. This is her poem on life. I hope, students, you understood this. Maybe you can go through the textbook and the poem, and also about the author. I hope you might have gone through the video on about the author, that is Miss Charlotte Bronte. So if you can go through her, about her, then maybe you can understand the poem in detail. Hope to see you soon in the next video. Thank you.